Hey guys, this is Hell Hades. This is a Raid Shadow Legends video. Guys, we're going to go through the top 120 best champions, most used champions, and I'm going to tell you the blessing I think you should put on that champion. I've had so many questions. What blessing for this champion? What blessing for this? I'm going to go through it and give you a couple of options based on what I think are going to be the best ones. We have gone through painstakingly and updated, actually. I'll show you a quick glimpse. Updated all of the ratings. I've been doing it over the last day or so. I've updated all of the ratings for my tier list in terms of different areas of the game. Iron Twins is now going to be added to the website. And on top of that, I do all that stuff. And then Saf comes in and pumps it onto the site. So we're also now going to have blessings on the site. Whew, we haven't done them all. This video is going to be like the top 120. We've done about 200 so far of all of the champions that can take blessings. Hopefully by the end of the week, we're going to be there with all champions. So what we do is we tell you the blessings that we think that you should put on that champion, depending on the kind of way you're going to use that champion. It's a bit like masteries. Yeah, if you're going to use somebody in arena defense, you'd have completely different masteries than if you use them in clan boss offense. Or if you're using someone in dungeons as a debuffer, that's different to if you were building them for damage. Yes, there's a whole bunch of different things you need to think about. So don't just blindly copy the first thing you see. Have a little think, what am I actually going to use this champion for? And does the recommendation kind of fit what I want to do with them? Now, I'll just say before we go into the different champions, it's definitely worth considering when you're picking your blessings, what type of champion am I? And what stats help me to do what I want to do. You know, when I'm going through and actually recommending blessings for different champions and I'm working with Saf on this, we are looking at, you know, what type of stat gain would we want to do that particular role. And sometimes that's more important than even the blessing that you're going to put on your champion to do a specific job in terms of like the active effect. Some active effects just aren't really relevant for the type of role you're trying to build. So it's just right, what stats fit that champion in that role best. So we're going to go through faction by faction. I'm going to pick out a few of the champions, some factions, quite a few actually. Top 120, we're going to like whiz through. So first one up, Septimus. What should you put on him? Brimstone. Brimstone will like bring more damage when you're doing those kind of enemy max HP hits and when you're hitting endgame dungeons. Next one up is going to be Archmage. Archmage, I think you've got a couple of good choices here. If you're going to use him in the arena and you want to try and boost his lead, or boost a speed lead, you're going to use Command in Presence. I think that'd be good on him. The other thing is if you're just going to straight up use him for damage, Phantom Touch is like the go-to damage dealing blessing ahead of a lot of the epic ones. The rare one, Phantom Touch. Stag Knight is the other one we're going to pull out from this faction. So he's a debuffer by nature. So as a debuffer, you want to go for Chainbreaker in your epics. That's going to give you the stats you want and also a kind of sneaky little buff. But honestly, the effect of Chainbreaker is not that great. The stats are really good for someone like a Stag Knight. Accuracy, speed, and a bit of survivability, which is pretty cool. Again, if you're going to go for damage, just put Phantom Touch on this dude. Let's have a look in the High Elves, and there's a lot more kind of champions that are used a fair amount. So first one up here, we're going to say Deliana. If you're going to use Deliana for Hydra, you're going to want to go Cruelty because you get AoE hits and you're stacking up Cruelty stacks against all of the Hydra heads. If you're going to go for just kind of general dungeons, I would go Brimstone and get that extra damage away against bosses. Lysandra is going to be the next one. Lysandra, you want to go for the Aura one, Intimidating Presence. If you don't do that and you're doing like an arena, let's say that you've got somebody else doing that Aura one already, like an Arbiter, and they're in the arena. Temporal Chains will help you try and cut in if you are losing a speed race. So she's all about turn meter control. Temporal Chains would be the second one I would choose on her. Again, if you're going to use her for something like Dark Fae or big dungeons, then you could go Brimstone as well. Yannika's next one up. Pretty much it's going to be the same with any straight damage dealer. Definitely for AoE, Soul Reap is your one. Yeah, anyone who's just kind of like trying to wave clear, arena wave clear, Soul Reap is going to be your baby because it's basically giving you a guaranteed 20% more damage. Yeah, if anyone is alive after your hit and they've got less than 20% health when it's a max 6 out of 6, bam, you're actually just going to straight up execute them. So that's going to be the same for Ethos as well. Soul Reap's going to be your 1. Arbiter, I can't think of a situation where I wouldn't just take Intimidating Presence for the aura. Let's get on to a couple of the epics then. Royal Guard. Royal Guard, I would do Crushing Rend if you've got a high level Awakening, like 5 or 6 star. If not, I would go Phantom Touch. Crushing Rend will be good once you start to get to affects all enemies that you're facing with your hits. But Crushing Rend below 4 stars is actually not as effective, like nowhere near as effective. If we looked at Tyrell, Chainbreaker as a debuffer, or you would go perhaps for his aura, Commanding Presence if you're trying to use his aura. I guess if you were using him in Clan Boss, you might choose Cruelty and start stacking up with his double hits here, the ability on Cruelty in terms of reducing the enemy's defense. And if you were using him against Iridoff to do the A1 decreased defense, a bit like you'll do with Jared, we'll see that in a minute, then you can go Heaven Cast and get a kind of like reduced resistance against that Iridoff fight. If we were looking at someone like Apothecary, so generally if you're using them in like dungeons and early game stuff like that, you go Survival Instinct. Just means that you've got more survivability and you get a bit of turn meter gain. If you're going in Clan Boss, I think you would go Phantom Touch. If you were trying to go in like Clan Boss and just last long, you might go Faultless Defense as an option as well. RS here, straight up Phantom Touch, more damage in your unkillable teams for Clan Boss. If we were in Sacred Order then, Rush Guard the Tower. So Tower you might be using in Clan Boss, or you might be using in like Twins, something like that. You just go Brimstone, it'll give you more damage. You only want 1 Brimstone in your team. You don't want more than 1. So if you've already got a Brimstone in there, you might go Cruelty, or you might just go Phantom Touch for more damage. Someone like an Astralon damage dealer, you go Soul Reap. If you're not going Soul Reap and you're using him for his debuff, then you'd actually go for Temporal Chains. So Temporal Chains is one of the blessings that will just give you the right type of stats for what you want. So Temporal Chains down here, you would get HP, accuracy, speed. Yeah, that's basically the stats you need for the debuffer if you're using him for that. For something like Spider debuffing, if you're trying to just get the stuns out, or if you're in the arena using them as your stun style champion. What else we got next? Bevaled. So if you use them in Hydra, you might go Miracle Heal and actually get rid of the destroyed max HP that you lose from fighting the Hydra when you're healing. So this will be a nice kind of nullifier for it. Or you might go for Heaven Cast and have a higher chance to land his A1 for the Provoke. But that's general use cases. If you don't really want either of those, again, you can just go Brimstone for more damage. Next one up, Sir Nick. I think most cases you'd go Soul Reap and get the more, get the kind of nuke in something like Arena. If you use them for endgame dungeons or Clan Boss or something like that, I think you'd go Brimstone. Venus, I think again you'd probably go Brimstone for like endgame dungeons. If you're using her for a kind of debuffs, again you'd go Temporal Chains mainly for the stats, the accuracy, the speed, etc. for a kind of debuff abilities. Next one up, Cardi-L. I think most situations you would take his Intimidating Presence aura buff. I think you could go Brimstone for kind of stat gain or damage gain if you're using him in like dungeons or Clan Boss or Hydra, somewhere like that. I mean, it's probably worth saying as well, a lot of the proper endgame plat players will just take Soul Reap on anyone because they see it as a chance to just kill someone. Even let's say Cardi-L comes in, he's not built for damage, but he's come in and he's in your arena team. If he hits anybody that's got less than 20% health, if he's on a 6 out of 6 awakening, they're straight up going to be dead. Doesn't matter how much he hits for, they're just going to die. So there is a kind of argument to say in the arena, like proper endgame, the Soul Reap's kind of good on anyone. But yeah, I don't think it's optimal, but that's just something to kind of shout out. Constantine, I think Soul Reap's the only one you would go for. Mordecai, generally you want him as a debuffer, so Chainbreaker would be the best here. Phoenix, you've got a kind of couple of options here. So he's a hard-hitting champion. I think Crushing Rend would be really good on him. If you're just going to use him kind of like general damage, then I think Phantom Touch could be good too. But I would be surprised, I've not been able to test it yet, but I'd be surprised if Phantom Touch activates his block revive. A bit like War Master won't activate his block revive. So it is an extra spike of damage on top of your normal hits. Deacon, I think there's tons of options with Deacon. He could be a kind of like aura lead. Yeah, so you could just kind of have his aura running. You could use Chainbreaker for stats as a debuffer if you want to like decrease defense. If you run enemy in clan boss, you might go for either cruelty to stack up the decreased defense on clan boss, or I think you go phantom touch if someone is already doing that and you just want to do more damage. Next one up is going to be Godseeker here. So Godseeker, I think if you're using Godseeker in Hydra, you might go Miracle Heal again to stop losing all of that kind of max HP. If you're using Godseeker somewhere like Iron Twins, you might actually go for Iron Will, so you take less damage from the kind of passive hits that come in. What else did I think about here? Oh, yeah, and if you're using it for Clan Boss, then you might go Cruelty as well, just to stack up the decreased defense hits. Aethel, straight up Phantom Touch, along with any rare champion really that's just going to do some damage. Barbarians. Just by the way, if your champion doesn't come up in this list, think about other champions that are similar and then try and use the same logic. Yeah? Ultan, if you're using Ultan against Iridoff to do the decreased attack, then Heavencast is going to be good for that. Seal of the Drakes. Yes, please. She's in everyone's team. So endgame dungeons, any kind of dungeons like that, you're going to use Brimstone to get that extra damage away. If we're going to build her out just as a straight damage dealer or as a higher damage kind of part of your carry, then I think you'd go Soul Reap. And although the attack doesn't benefit her in any way, you still get that chance to just execute people when they're below 20%. Valk, if you're going Valk Clan Boss, you're probably going to go Brimstone. If you're using Valk in like an arena defense setup, I think you go Temporal Chains. Turvold, interesting. So I had a bit of a debate with Saf on this one. If you're using Turvold in Clan Boss, it looks like Phantom Touch, the rare ability, as long as you've got Brimstone in the team somewhere, Phantom Touch looks like it's going to be the one to go for to get yourself maximum damage gains. Which seems pretty nuts. Your Carl, I think you go Soul Reap. Onto the epics here. High Katoon, I think you just go with the Aura, Commanding Presence. The Fat Man, generally used in Clan Boss and Dungeon. So I think in sort of somewhere like Clan Boss, I think you're going to use Phantom Touch. Outside of that, if you're just using him for debuffs in things like Doom Tower and what have you, I think you go Chainbreaker. But any of the rares, yeah, War Maiden here, I think just Phantom Touch again. Same with Soulbond Bowyer. Okay, let's move on to the Ogryn Tribes. So the Ogryn Tribes, I called out a couple here. So Ignatius. What did I pick on Ignatius? Soul Reap, if you're just trying to use him as a nuker, somewhere like the Arena or Brimstone, anywhere else. Gergo is an interesting one. And again, I had a bit of a debate with Saf on this one. So I think if you're going like offensive on him, trying to build damage, I think you actually go Soul Reap, get your freeze away, you come in, you roll in, and then you've got a chance to execute someone on the kill. But I think in most situations, you'll go for stats and you'll be going like Temporal Chains on this dude. Udo, if you're using Udo for Hydra, you might go for that Miracle Heal and protect your max HP. Or you might go for Chainbreaker for the stats, for the accuracy and speed and what have you. Who else do we pick out here? Skull Crusher. I think you probably go Cruelty on him to stack up the decreased defense for Clan Boss. Maneater, I think you would go Phantom Touch and just get extra damage away. Or if you don't have someone doing Cruelty already, you could use him, but he's not attacking that often. And Cruelty stacks up per hit. So he's doing like single target hits and he's doing buffs. He's not the best case for it, really. You're probably better off letting someone else do that and just letting him have Phantom Touch. Eurogrim, I think Aura, or if you're using him to like solo Ice Golem, you might go for Iron Will to protect you from those retaliation hits if they do proc. I think both Grush and Occult Brawler generally used for Clan Boss. You might go Cruelty, or you might actually use, because they don't do that much, or Occult Brawler doesn't do that much damage with hits. You could even use him as your aura buff. So you could use him in like a Commanding Presence to buff your main aura. Let's say you've got a defense buff on your Clan Boss team. He's actually going to buff that even though he's not the aura champion. And I think you could do a similar thing here with Grush as well. Bellowa here, Phantom Touch. Again, most of the rares are going to have Phantom Touch unless they've got some sort of specialist type of build. Let's have a look at the Lizardmen. Draco, I think you go Brimstone for kind of general dungeons and know, if you're using him in like Hydra and stuff like that. Or if you're going in Clan Boss, you might go Cruelty to stack up that decreased defense. He does a multi-hitter on his A3, which would stack it up pretty damn quick. Fushan, I think you just go straight up Soul Reap in most situations. If you're running him in Clan Boss, you would probably go Cruelty because he will stack up that Cruelty really fast with his crazy A1. If you don't have Brimstone though, you'd want to take Brimstone on him instead. Razin, I think you would just go Brimstone for Clan Boss. Same sort of thing really. Cruelty would stack up fast on him, so it's not a bad one to take. But Brimstone at least gives him the stats that he wants as well in defense and stuff like that. Krisk, I think, again, pretty similar really. Krisk, let's see if I'd said anything. Yeah, Cruelty or Brimstone, depending on your kind of setup for most content. Looking at the epics, Jared, if you're using Jared against Iridoff, then you would take Heavencast so that you're getting that A1 away more consistently. If you're going in somewhere like Clan Boss, I think anyone who's got ally protection abilities like Jared, you might actually go Faultless Defender. So yeah, Faultless Defense actually will just reduce some of the damage you take per hit. So someone who's doing ally protection and you're trying to keep them alive whilst keeping the rest of your team alive, I think this would be a really good one for Clan Boss just to try and keep that style of champion alive. Same really with a lot of the ally protectors in the game. Who else I picked out here? Venomage. Venomage, I was thinking just kind of like Phantom Touch for more damage. If you're struggling at all for kind of survivability, you might go Faultless Defense as well. And if you're using Venomage to solo Ice Golem, you might go Iron Will. Aox, if you're using Aox against twins, Iron Will is good as well because of that retaliation hit. And again, if you're using him against someone like Clan Boss, I think you could either use him as your aura buffer, not buffing his aura, buffing someone else's, or you could use him for something like Cruelty to start stacking up the drop defense ability of your enemies. I think there's anyone down there. Skinwalkers then. Cleopteryx, just going to be a Soul Reap, straight damage. Same with Leo as well. Ragash, you could either go Soul Reap to get that kind of 20% kill if you're just going to use him for damage. If you're going to use him against like endgame dungeons and stuff, then you could go Brimstone to get the procs of damage against the bosses. Tumisia is an interesting one as well. So Tumisia, I think because of the level of damage that she can do, Crushing Rend could be quite interesting on her. But I think generally you would just go Soul Reap for nukage. If you don't want to do more damage because you're using Tumisia for something like Spiderling Control, then just grab one that gets you stats like the chains, temporal chains, would kind of do the stat boost without giving you a whole load of damage boost. Bane, I think you would go Cruelty to stack up, Clan Boss, drop defense. If you've already got Cruelty active somewhere in your team, just take Phantom Touch for more damage. Who else is there here? I think that's probably it for this one. On the Orcs then, someone like Kreela, you probably just go Brimstone or Soul Reap if you're going for like a damage wave clearing type of build. Someone like Iron Brago for Clan Boss, you would go Brimstone. Someone like Warlord here, mainly used in Arena for like Arena defense, so you'd probably go Temporal Chains. Gives him speed, gives him accuracy, and some defensive stats. If you was using them outside of Arena, then you'd probably go Brimstone for the extra damage. Someone like Duke the Pierce then, so I think Chainbreaker for the stats, and also a little bit of an active ability, or you might just kind of buff auras with him. Seer's an interesting one. Seer benefits massively from Crushing Rend. Saf's managed to pull a 6 out of 6 soul for Seer, and you should see, oh, it's disgusting, the damage that his Seer does now through Crushing Rend. It's to the point of broken. It's absolutely disgusting. Gaelic, just Phantom Touch here. What else we got? Onto Demon Spawns then. If you're with me, well done. I know this is a bit of a quick fire one, but a lot of people are asking this stuff. Prince Kaimar, Intimidating Presence, just buff that aura. If you don't want to buff the aura because someone else already is, and you're looking for like an arena stat boost, Temporal Chains would be good. If you're using him for like reset mechanics against bosses like Dragon or a Fire Knight or somewhere like that, then I think you go Brimstone for more damage against the actual boss. Who else we got here? Heffrack, Soul Reap if you're arena offense, Ward of the Fallen if you're arena defense. Yeah, so Ward of the Fallen basically allows you to take 3 hits. It's a bit like having reaction accessories on you or stone skin on you, but it could be any hits, so you've got to be aware of that. Like if someone comes in with a Kaimon and does a little tap, that counts as a hit. If someone procs a Warmaster proc on you, that counts as a hit. So your bone armor stacks actually fall off super fast, but you're just trying to stay alive long enough to get your damage away. So I think Ward of the Fallen would be cool. Exactly the same setup on a Candy. Offense, I think you go Soul Reap. Defense, I think you go Ward of the Fallen. Somebody like a Drex, Brimstone for more damage. Sakia, you could go Brimstone for more damage, or you could go Temporal Chains for the stats. Who else have we got here? A Duchess. What did we say on Duchess? Aura Boost. Or if you're using her as like arena defense, and I think you could go Temporal Chains, basically to try and push back enemy turn meter. Even if you're using an arena offense, Temporal Chains could be good as well, because you can kind of choose where you're kind of picking your enemies to fight and push back their turn meter. Someone like a Helicaf, similar to what we've spoken about with the tower. So I think you just go Brimstone for the damage, or you pick out, specifically on Clan Boss, he'd be really good to stack up Cruelty, because he's got a double hit A1, and then plus when he gets hit, when you've got your block damage on, he counter attacks as well to give you another A1. So he's actually going to stack up that Cruelty really fast. Allure down here then. So Allure, I think you'd go Cruelty. She's got a triple hit A1. She's going to stack up decreased defense on bosses really quick. If you don't need it, then you can just go Phantom Touch for more damage, and it'll do little spikes of damage when she attacks. Someone like an Akoff here, I think you just go Chainbreaker for more stats. Achak, same thing. You might boost Aura with Achak if you wanted to as an alternative. Magnar, Crushing Rend if you're just using him as an absolute nuke. Interestingly, we looked at this one as well. So thinking about the stats you might want on a Magnar, especially if you're going in a go second team. A cool one for almost like a bit of more of a niche, and it's all about stats here, is Survival Instinct. So HP, crit damage, speed, and turn meter fill as debuffs are starting to be placed on you. That could be really good if you've got Magnar in like a go second team as an alternative option for the big boy. Undeads then. So Rotors, I think you just go Soul Reap all day long. Bad L, if you're trying to solo Ice Golem, then I think you go Iron Will. Otherwise, I think you go Brimstone. Ultimate Death Knight, I think you go Brimstone in most occasions, especially if you're doing like solo type content or dungeon content. If you're using him in arena, I think you go Temporal Chains as just kind of like a stats boost and a bit of a survivability thing. Mashold, I think you're going for like a damage build, you just go Soul Reap. If you're using him for like dungeon clearing, or if you're using him for specifically if you're using him for something like Hydra, I think you can stack up Cruelty against all the heads pretty well with his A1. And if you're trying to nuke down like waves of enemies in, I don't know, somewhere like Faction Wars, and actually Crushing Rend could be really good on him as well. Sifi then, I think Sifi just kind of do Aura boost. She's got a really good resistance in all battles. You probably would boost that if you're using them for Aura. If you're not, then something like Temporal Chains would be good as well. Or even Lightning Cage as well to protect some of the buffs that she's putting out there. Necrit, I think you actually do go Lightning Cage to protect some of the buffs that he's putting out to his team. Or I think you go Brimstone if you're using him in somewhere like Clan Boss outside of sort of general stuff. Euros, if you're doing like a Scarab kill, just go Brimstone, give you more damage, get it done quicker. Someone like Seeker, I think stacks up Cruelty really fast in Clan Boss. So Cruelty if you're using him in like a Batman Eater or something like that type of comp. If you're using him in Arena for like a go second team or Arena defense, I think Heaven Cast gives him kind of all the stats that he wants. Plus, it gives him a better chance to land his A1 provoke. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Husk, you can either go Crushing Rend if you're using him as like a nuker. You could go for Heaven Cast, if you're trying to use him to land his A1 Provoke in Hydra without building tons of accuracy on him. So he's got a better chance to land that A1 Provoke. Or you could go for Cruelty if you're trying to drop defense of all of the Hydra heads using his AoE hits. Bogoth, I think you just go Faultless Defender pretty much in all situations to have more survivability. Plus it gives him all stats that benefit a Vogoth. Frozen Banshee down here, Grave Chill, pretty similar. Just go Phantom Touch for your damage for Clan Boss, additional damage. You could go Faultless Defender if you're often against Affinity Clan Bosses and you're trying to just withstand more damage, trying to stay alive for longer. Not necessarily in an unkillable team, but if you're not running unkillable, Faultless Defender will just give you a better length of time to stay alive. Let's go into the Dark Elves then. So somebody like Xavier, I think it's just Soul Reap all day long. Somebody like Vizier, if you use him in Clan Boss, then you can stack up that Cruelty really quick with his 3-hitter A1, which will be pretty damn cool. What else have we got here? You could use Ghostspawn. So Ghostspawn as like a Brimstone, more damage for bosses if he's in like an endgame team. Or you might just use him as the aura buffer for somebody else. Lydia, exactly the same. I think you go Brimstone or an aura buff. Visix, I think you go Brimstone pretty much in all situations unless you've already got it on your team somewhere. Then you might go something like Cruelty or Crushing Rend. Crushing Rend will just give you a bit more damage. Kind of needs to be 6 out of 6 though for Crushing Rend to be relevant. So someone like Mithrala, I think you just go Brimstone if you're trying to get extra damage away on something like Hydra or in general kind of content like Iron Twins. If you're using Mithrala in your arena defense, I think you go Temporal Chains for good stats. I mean, the stat boost for Mithrala would be massive because you get accuracy, you get resistance, you get speed. It's kind of all of the stats that she's going to want. Plus, you get a little bit of an active effect that could be pretty useful as well. Dark Kale, if you picked him up, I think you go Cruelty to stack up the kind of defense drop on bosses. Or if you use him in somewhere like Clan Boss, I think you go Phantom Touch. Who else have we got in here? Lady, Madame, Chainbreaker, all of the stats that she wants sitting on that. Same for Sylar. Chainbreaker will give you the stats that you want. We do have, of course, a couple of rares in this one. So Kale, Phantom Touch, more damage. Cold Heart's an interesting one. So she's one of the few who would actually benefit. Instead of Phantom Touch, let's look at what it's called. Hero Soul. Hero Soul against Spider would give you more damage when you do your main hits. If you're just outside of Spider using her as well, like Fire Knight and stuff, then Phantom Touch would still be better. If you're using Painkeeper in Clan Boss, Phantom Touch, more damage. Let's get onto the Night Revs. So I thought I'd talk about Gaius here because he is like unique as a bomb champion. What do bomb champions want? Accuracy, attack. That's basically it. Yeah, especially Gaius because once he's done his abilities, he just wants to die. So you actually want lethal dose just to give you your stats. That's the only blessing that gives you stats which are attack and accuracy together. So even though the ability does nothing that you want, that's still the one you're going to want. And that's similar for other bomb champions, Soul Drinkers, you know, that type of champ as well. Theodore then, the kind of boss killer here, going to want Brimstone in pretty much every situation. Calvalax, I think Crushing Rend would do a lot of work. I think Cruelty would do a lot of work. Or you could just run Brimstone for boss killing as well. Someone like Walking Tomb Drang, I think Soul Reaper, just to try and get the kills away, unless you need more stats, in which case you would go Temporal Chains. Who else have we got here? Hedgie. Hedgie's an interesting one as well, because it totally depends on how you're going to build him. If you're going full damage and you're trying to kill people, then you go Soul Reaper and just try the extra mile to get the kill done. If you're kind of fighting in higher end arena, you're really looking for those stats. Speed and accuracy being the main two. In which case, I think you just go Brimstone. Someone like a Solus, just go straight up damage. Again, Soul Reap would get the job done. Let's have a look at a couple of the epics here. So Miscreated Monster, Crushing Rend would be good to go alongside his big shield. Or you could use something like Chainbreaker if you need the stats, accuracy, speed, that type of thing. Rector Draff. Here we go. Rector Draff. I think if you're using her as your kind of primary healer, then for Hydra, you could go Miracle Heal. Same for Doom Priest. If it's a Hydra thing, Miracle Heal would be good. If you're using Rector to try and land the decreased attack as well, but you don't have much accuracy stats because of your build, you could actually go for Heaven Cast and get the kind of decreased resistance on the A1, which is pretty cool as well. Skull Crown, I think you just go Crushing Rend. If you're using Renegade for kind of reset stuff, you know, high-end Fire Knight, then you go Phantom Touch. Phantom Touch on Coffin Smasher as well if you're using him in Clan Boss, unless you're struggling to stay alive, in which case you pick up that Faultless Defense or Faultless Defender, whatever it's called. Onto the Dwarves then. So Trunda, you've guessed it, Soul Reap. Brogni, I think you go Brimstone most of the time, unless you've already got one in the team. If you're looking to build out like a straight damage hitting Brogni, you might even go Soul Reap and try and get some kills like in the arena. If you're doing something like the Infinity teams, I think you actually might go Phantom Touch and get more damage with your hit, plus the attack is a benefit to you. So the stats kind of like pick up more in terms of what you're going to do for the Infinity teams on Clan Boss. So I think there's a few options, but for most people, it would probably be Brimstone that you'd want to take. Someone like a Tormund. So Tormund here, I think you go Temporal Chains for the stat gain on something like an Arena Defense, more accuracy, survivability, and defense, kind of everything that he would want there for that. If you're trying to go like proper tank build and basically be annoying, then I think you go Ward of the Fallen. Someone like a Geo then. Geo currently probably the best champion in the game. The only champion capable of beating up the Iron Twins stage 15. Raid, what have you done to your game? I think you just bring stats. Yeah, Geo doesn't need damage. He does damage from being hit. So something like Chainbreaker, accuracy, speed, and survivability, I think works really well for him. If you use him in like an unkillable team for Clan Boss, I think you just take Phantom Touch and do more damage that way. Another good one could be against Iron Twins, the Iron Will, so that when you're taking a hit from those counterattack hits, you just take less damage. That could be pretty cool. Dimitha here, using a lot of Clan Boss teams. You could use her to boost aura if you've got somebody who's doing like your speed aura in your team for the unkillable stuff. Or you could just go Phantom Touch for a bit more damage. You could go Cruelty to kind of stack up the drop defense, but she doesn't hit that often and she doesn't multi-hit. So I think it would be pretty damn slow to get that away. Better off getting someone else to do that, and she does Phantom Touch. Bulwark here. So again, you might use him against the Iron Twins, in which case Iron Will would be good. If you use him in your like Clan Boss team, you could go Faultless Defense, and that would be a pretty decent one to just take less damage and get kind of a bit of benefit out of your Bulwark. Let's go on to the last faction then. So Lady Kimmy here, I think if you're using her in Arena, Temporal Chains, or in some dungeons, honestly, just for the stat boost you're going to get for all of the key stats that she wants, Temporal Chains works really well. You could use Brimstone on her as well if you use her in like something like Hydra or Endgame Dungeons. Ninja, I think you just take Brimstone all day long. Gives him everything he wants. Yumiko, I think you go Temporal Chains for the stats for arena type of fights, or you just go Brimstone if you're using her outside of that. Or you could go Aura Boost on her. Certainly if you're using like somebody else in the arena that's fast and you don't have it already, just take the Aura Boost and make sure that she goes first. So last couple then. Taragi, almost exclusively Clan Boss. I think you would, because he's an ally protector again, I think you would just go with that Faultless Defense so that he's taking less damage from Clan Boss hits. And lastly, Gembo, Crushing Rend, do more damage. If you use him outside of arena, you might go Phantom Touch, but pretty much everyone uses him in the arena. So you go, that's like 120 odd champions with some ideas. As I say, the website will be updated more and more throughout the week with more blessings. If you feel like we've got any of them just straight up wrong, please comment in my Discord. Come and find us. We're still learning them as much as anyone else. But hopefully that was helpful. I've been Hell Hades. I'll see you later.